What is up, everybody? How is it going? We are down to part number 3 here. This time we're going to be covering enemy. So we're going to put some baddies in here and make them move and make them kill us. And then we'll go from there. So let's jump right into it. Let's grab in our assets over here, sprites, character. Let's grab this little fellow over here. Let's change the names over here. Let's type in enemy, press enter. And let's also add some of the components that we know we're going to have to use. For example, we need a box collider 2D. Now it's going to just automatically cover the whole sprite. We should probably edit it and move it to like over here, because it doesn't make sense to die, especially if it's here. It's like nothingness. So let's put it over here. Oh, let's click back, edit collider, and move this up as well a little bit, like here, for example. Okay, cool. So now we have this guy. Next thing we can give him is a Rigidbody 2D. So there we go. Rigidbody 2D is at our service. So again, if you just drop it, press play, he should just drop down using gravity. Oh, look at that, beautiful. All right, so I think what we'll do is now we'll probably make a pretty generic enemy script, so we can attach that script to any enemy we want and just kind of be able to change some of the properties of it. Like if we want them to go faster, if we want them to be jumping, we want them to be flying, stuff like that. So instead of making multiple different scripts, we're just going to make one script. So let's call it capital E enemy and then capital S script. Enemy script. Oh, I just realized it doesn't record that for some reason. So just click add component and start typing in enemy script. Capital E, capital S, no spaces. Well, let's do this. So press enter and then press enter again, and it will actually open up the coding software over here. For you guys, this might be mono develop. I'm using Visual Basic. All right, so it didn't open the actual script. So I'm gonna go back here, click the enemy, and double click the enemy script. All right, and you can see the name over here. So this has to match the outside. If it doesn't, you're gonna get errors. All right, so let's just start over here. And let's create a variable. Let's call it public float. Let's give it speed. So just end that with a semicolon. So now we have a speed. So now there's multiple ways of moving it. We could do movement the way we did the character by adding force. But that's not constant, right? Because it just starts pushing, and then it depends on the physics, what's going on. There is a more direct way of moving objects. That is using translate. So you're just going to do transform dot translate. Now I might be missing some syntax over here, so you can see capital T translate transform, so our body basically, right? Dot translate, and now this translate just takes in a couple of values. So open parentheses, close parentheses, and again remember to close the semicolon at the end. So inside of it, if you notice, you might not see it because it doesn't record it for some reason, but if you open the parentheses, you'll see it telling you what to put in. It's going to tell you, oh, you want to put vector 3. So that's where we're going to put in there. We're going to put in a vector 3. So we're going to create a new vector 3. So we're going to do new vector 3 because we want to give it new values. And then again, open close parentheses. And inside of it, you have to type in 3 values, right? The X and Y, the X, the Y, and the Z. Now we don't want it to move in Z or even Y right now. So we're just going to add it in the X direction. So let's just say, well, we can multiply by 1, and then multiply that by speed, right? And then put a comma. So now we have to put in the Y value, which is going to go 0, and then comma, Z value we're going to put in is 0. So now we have 1, and then moving in the direction. Just to see if that works, I'm going to go ahead and go back into Unity. So we'll see the little public, since we made that variable public, the speed. So it should show up here, and it does. Look at that, speed. So let's give it like 10. I just want to see if it'll actually move. So let's press play. And oh God, I think he does. So let's do one thing. Instead of it being crazy, what we're going to do is multiply the speed by time.delta time. That kind of brings it back into control. So we're going to multiply it by time.delta time. Go back out there, make sure you save the script. Let's press play, and you can see him moving. See, now he's moving constantly. He's not getting added the force and going faster and faster. He's just moving at a constant speed. And I can change that to whatever I want. For example, if I have 1y5, and voila, he's moving now slower. The gravity still applies. It's just the little push that we're giving it. It's not a push anymore. It's just telling it, oh, move 5 units per frame, right. So that's what it's going to be. Now we do want it, so I want to give it some sort of AI. It's going to be super basic AI. Basically what we're going to do is if it hits something, say it's going right and it hits a wall. All we wanted to do is turn left. And if it's going left and it hits a wall, then turn right. So basically it can kind of move around the map on its own, right? So let's go back in here. So let's do a couple of things. We know that this is moving it right? So let's create an if statement over here. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's create a public. What do we public? Yeah, let's create a public. So let's call it, not public, private. Private Boolean, and let's call it going right. So small g, capital R. That's just usually how you define variables. So small g going right, let's equal it to true for now. So initially when the game starts, it's going to be true. Over here, we're going to do an if statement. So if statement, open close parentheses, and we're going to type in going right. Now I could do after this equals true. That would be a check, or if you want to save some coding time, you can just type in going right, because since it's a Boolean variable, so true and false, it already knows. If I just put it like this, it knows. So if going right is equal to true, that's what this means right now. All right, so let's open bracket, and you'll see these curly little braces. Let's put this line in there. Cool. So we're gonna cut it, paste it. Let's do an else. So the only other thing is gonna be if it's not going right, that means it's going left, right? So let's put that, copy paste that same exact line that we have over here, but instead of 1, we're gonna put in -1. Cool. So now we have a going right and a going left. So right now nothing's happening to it, so it's gonna still run this line. But we have checks now, so we can use that later. So what we're gonna do is basically gonna say if it touches something, if it enters a collider, then change directions, right? So let's, we're gonna go, so outside of the update function, right? This is where the update ends, still in the class. We're gonna do a void. We're gonna do capital O, small n, collision, so capital C, collision, and then capital E, enter. Open the parentheses. Inside of it, we have to give it parameters. So let's give it, we're gonna type in capital C, is it? Yeah, capital C, collision. It might be collision, I think. Right, it's collision. Capital C, collision, and then that's the variable type, and the name we're gonna give it is just call. Okay, so then open brackets, the curly brackets again. So now we have a new function that we've never used yet. So here we're gonna check for touching. So this function automatically gets called when our object hits something. So we don't have to call it, it's being called. You know how this one's being called every frame? This one gets called when we hit something. So we're gonna do basically if, so let's check if we're going right. So if we're going right, open close curlies again, then going right equals false. That means it's gonna be going left, right? And then we're gonna also check, let's just do an else statement, and let's do, so same thing here, else, open curly bracelets, stop it, else, so that means if we collide and we're not going right, then let's go right. So going right equals true. Okay, awesome. So honestly, that should be it. Let's go test that out. Let's hopefully. So we need a wall. Let's create a wall real quick. Let's just go into environments over here and see if one of the things is going to be good. Is there anything simple? Oh, we can use this giant tower. All right, let's use this giant tower. Why not? It's gigantic and we love it. Let's maybe shrink it down. So to change these scaling things, you just press in W to move it around, E to rotate, and then R to scale. So, or you can select it up here as well. So let's shrink it down a little bit. Bring it over here. It doesn't really match because, you know, you should use a wall here, but you guys can change and make it whatever you want. So let's just put it there. We need to give it a collider. So let's call it box collider. Make sure it's 2D because the regular one is 3D and it's not going to collide with a 2D. So 2D box collider. Okay. I'm going to change the name to tower, just simpler. Okay. So we have a collider. We don't need to give it a rigid body because we don't want it to be getting pushed around. It's just a block. As you can see when you click the little collider, you can shrink that or not, it's up to you. Okay, so now we have a thing that this could collide with. So, technically speaking, if I didn't make any mistakes or forget anything, oh no, okay, well it's going there, and it's just bouncing because it can't move any forward, see? I can push it like that, but it's not gonna. Okay, so let's make him, let's see what's going on here. So as again, I kind of made a super silly mistake again. Everything we're doing is in 2D. So box collider is 2D. Rigidbody is 2D. So this should be also 2D. We just got to put the 2 and then capital D. And then the collision variable is also 2D. I keep forgetting that. So I've been making that mistake quite a bit. It's a very silly mistake, but you know, stuff like that happens all the time. Okay, so it's capital O, collision, enter, 2D, capital D. Same thing here, collision, 2D. So now if we go back, save the script, go back, and you'll see the character, when it hits the little thing, is gonna whoop, turn around. Awesome. Oh, it hit something here as well. I think it's hitting this this thing. So we'll have to make it ignore the floor. That's fine though. Okay, so what we have to do is make him face the right direction as well. So let's quickly do that. As you can see, we can just scale him like this, or with the 2D stuff, we actually have this parameter over here that says flip. So sprite render flip. If you press X, you can see a flip. Now the issue is that the collider is not switching over, right? And that's not good. So otherwise, even if you flipped, his collider is going to be here. So what we can do is either move the collider after we flip it. So we'll go over here, box collider, just offset it like that, right? And then undo it to the same value over here. That's one way of doing it, or the other way of doing it is just to change the scale. But if we change the scale to -1, because that's what it's going to be over here, we might run into other issues there. So, but you know, it's not too bad. Let's, oh, what did I do? It should be 1. All right, so let's try here. So when he's going right, I'm going to go ahead and do it with the flip canvas because, I don't know, I like it. So let's press enter over here. So when he's going right, we're going to do, so the way you access the properties over here, this is in the enemy, right? This is in the inspector of the enemy. So these are all components. So let's go over here. We're going to do, you know, there were components, right? So let's do get component. Okay, then you can open this little caret or the alligator mouth. And inside of it, we want to put what component? And we want the sprite renderer. Okay. And then right after the little closing of the alligator mouth, we're going to do open close parentheses. And then we can access it. So if you put a dot now, we're going to get all of the values. You can see the flip X over here as well. If you put dot, you'll see the little window open. I can't see, oh, I can, I can't record it for some reason. So flip X, we're going to do equal true. Simple as that. Oh, sorry, false. This is false over here because this is going right, remember? And we're going to copy this line and paste it over here. And here we're going to equal it to true. So now if you go back, save the script, go back, he should flip. Now again, the box collider is not going to be proper. See, there you go, he flips. Now the issue is that the box collider is not properly fitting. So we're going to have to move that. Let's create a new line. Now for this line, Unity is kind of weird in the way that it lets you change certain variables. So for example, you can't change position just by typing in transform dot position dot x equals 6 or 5. You know, it doesn't let you do that. So the way to do stuff like that, or moving even like the box collider, what we have to do is we have to create a temporary variable. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to create a vector 2 because we know that our Unity box collider offset is 2 variables, x and y. So we're going to create a vector 2, give it a name. Let's call it original capital V value. Let's set it equal to, now we can use the box collider's size. So let's just do get component, open caret, close caret. Inside the carets, we're going to put box collider 2D. And then outside, open close parentheses, dot offset. Okay. Make sure to finish with a semicolon. Okay, so now we have the value of our box collider. So now what you do is it's stored in here. Now you can change it and then assign it back. So you can't just directly assign it. You have to always assign it to a variable and then modify it and then assign it. It's kind of silly, but I mean, that's just how Unity does it. So we're going to go original value dot. Now we can change the X or the Y. So let's change the X. So this is us going right? So what do we have over here for right? We had this little piece of gigantic number. It doesn't have to be that. I think we can just make it point, honestly, 0.67. There you go. Even 6. Okay, let's 67. Why not? So 0.67. Let's get that. Copy it. We're going to paste it in here. Make sure to put the F because it's a decimal, and then semicolon to end it. See, now we can assign it right back. So we're going to do we can just copy over here, get component, box collider 2D. Let's copy this up till the offset, not the semicolon. And now we can just set it equal to original value. Since we have the original value, and then we change the X of it, so the Y is still the same. And now we can change it, and you can see it won't give me errors, and that will actually work. So let's copy this whole 3 lines of changing the little box collider and paste it down here. But this is not going to be 0.6, so when it's going left, I think we can just make it something like negative 0.8f. You can, if you really want, you can change, flip the over here, flip X, and then you can kind of mess with the value, but I think negative 0.8, yeah, see that kind of lines it up. So let's undo that. So we'll do that, right? So when he's going left, let's change the offset of the X by negative 0.8. All right, so now if we go back in here and check it out, press play, and boom, the collider works, and changing direction works, everything is fantastic. Alrighty, let's keep moving along. So let's make him ignore the floors. So click any of the floors. Actually, what I'm going to do real quick is turn this floor into a prefab, and I'll explain what that is. So let's just delete all the floors that I have here. If you don't have any, that's fine, as long as there's one only. So let's get one floor, okay? In the floor tags, we're going to go over here, add tag. I'm sure you can't see that screen, but just click the, where is it, floor, tags over here, click this, and then add tag. Now in here, we're going to create our new tag, so let's call it capital F floor. So now the spelling is very important. So capital F matters too. It doesn't have to be capital, but just have to remember what it is. So floor, now we have a floor. So let's go back in the floor in the hierarchy, tags again, and now you'll see it in the list that shows here. So click floor, make sure the tag is equal to floor. So now that's one of our floors, and it has this tag. Now what we're gonna do is right click the assets folder. Let's create a new folder. So create folder, we're gonna call it prefabs. And prefabs just basically means items we're gonna use later. So I can copy paste that item all over the place, and if I change one of them, they will all change. So I don't have to keep modifying every single one if I wanted to change something about them. So in the prefab folder, double click it. Let's drag in this floor right into the prefab folder. See? Check it out, it's right there. So now if I drag it in here, you'll see it's blue over here, but I can drag as many as I want, and say if I wanted to change one of them, so say I change the scale of this like this, and then I hit apply, look, they all change. See? So let's undo that. Oh no, I don't know why I didn't undo the size. Let's just fix it real quick. Okay, so let's move it into the place. I'm gonna duplicate, so Control D now. You'll see it's still the prefab because I was already selecting the prefab. Let's place it over here and then duplicate it one more time. Control D and place it right there. Okay, so now we have all of them with this floor tag. So what we're gonna do now is go back into our scripts, and we're just gonna check, before we change the directions, we're gonna check if we hit the floor or not. Because if we hit the floor, then we don't need to do it. So let's do if out here, and we're gonna say call, if you remember, is this variable that's being passed in by Unity. So call dot, and again, this variable is a lot of information. What we need is the name of the collider. So, well, the name of the collider, right? So to get that, we have to get it through a little path. So we're gonna do transform, which is the body, and then transforms game object dot tag. We're gonna get the tag. Okay, so that will give us the little floor. Let's check for it. So let's do double equal signs here. Equal equal, open quotes, close quotes. Let's put in capital F L-O-O-R, floor. Okay, so and then open close curly brackets and then toss this in there. Okay, so now they're inside this if condition. But we don't want to check for floor. We're going to say if it's not floor, right? So instead of doing double equals, we're going to take away one of the first equal sign, and we're going to put an exclamation mark. What that does is says if it does not equal floor, then do it. So if it collides and it checks it is floor, it's not going to run any of this. If it collides and it says it's not floor, then we're going to do it. So if I save this, I go back in here, and they all have the tag of floor. So let's see. It goes in there, it changes direction, and it keeps going, see? And if it hits me, it changes directions. Cool, huh? So we have enemy movement. I think what we can do, I don't want it to be too long again, so let's just go back and do one more thing, which is for it to kill us, okay? So let's quickly do that. We're basically gonna check another collision over here. So we can do an else. So let's do an else right in front of this bracket after the whole if. Open, close the curly braces. But we're not just doing an else. We're doing else if, open, close parentheses, call dot transform dot game object dot tag equals. So now we are actually checking for the name. Equals player. Okay. So I think it's capital P. We'll double check that. So capital P, player. If it's player, then we're gonna basically just reset the scene for now. And I realized one thing, because this could also mean check it with the player, but that's fine. It's not, well, it's an elf statement, so it should be fine. Not that big of a deal. If it causes an issue, we'll fix it there. So let's just restart the scene here. So the way you restart the scene, we have to add a library. Why can't I say library? Let's do using up here. We're going to use Unity Engine dot scene management. So this is going to give us more functions that are automatically made for us, right? So make sure you have this on top. Now on the bottom, we can just do scene. Now you can see if you start typing, you'll start seeing these autofills show up. You'll see scene manager, which you wouldn't have seen if you didn't put the top thing in there. So scene manager dot load scene. And then inside the thing, we're just going to put in the name of our scene, which is you have to save it, right? So did I even save the scene? I hope I did. I did. Okay, I called it main scene. Basically, you do save as, and I can call it, say, level 1, right? So now it'll show up as level 1. Let's make sure, double click that scene. Are we in that scene? Okay, I'm going to delete this main scene. So in level 1, now one more thing we have to do for it to load, we have to go in build settings. Again, you probably can't see it, but file, build settings. Oh, you probably don't see this window either. Okay, so when the build setting window opens up, you're going to drag your level 1 or whatever you named it into that area where it says scenes in build. Just drag and drop it in there and it'll show up there and it'll be check marked. Okay, that's all we're doing there. So as long as it's in the Unity library now. So we go back to the coding here and load scene. Now we can just type in the exact name. The capitalizing matters too. So level 1, level 1, right? That's what I called it. Make sure to end that. So now when their little enemy hits and it checks that it's player, it's gonna load this scene. All right, so let's see. Let's make sure our player is called. No, see, our player does not have a tag of player. So click that and then click player. Make sure the capital P is there. Okay, so let's test that. Now we will be able to die. Ready? We're gonna die. It's just gonna reset the scene. It did not reset the scene. Ah! No problem. Let's see how we can fix this. All right, again, very silly mistake. So you'll notice here we had an else, and that's what I was talking about, that it might cause issues. We had an else, and then we set it. So basically it was going in here, and it was either running this one or this one, because we had an else, right? But if we take out that else, then it's going to run both of them. It's going to run this first, and then it's going to run. So what was happening, since I had an else, the player, this scenario matches this too, because we are hitting something that's not player. So it was just running this one. So now it's going to run both of this. Okay, so now if I save it, go back in here, press play, and you'll notice that we will, come on, boom, die. See, it resets the scene. It also changes directions. You'll notice it real quick, but we can die now. Cool. All right. Hopefully that wasn't too long. It might have been too long, but hopefully not too bad, right? So I hope you guys learned a lot, and next time we'll go about killing this little guy. I'm gonna stop running into him. Don't come to me. Don't do it. No! And he's gonna jump off with me. Oh, he still got me. All right. Anyhow, I'll see you guys next time when we are gonna kill him. Hee hee. All right. Bye.